Good evening, you're with India's #1 business news channel ET Now, and this is India Tonight. I'm Sandeep Gurumurthy joining you live from our news centre in Mumbai, and with me is my colleague Supriya Srinivasan.
It's a great evening indeed, and let's take you straight across to our top story then, and it certainly doesn't get bigger than this. Amitabh Bachchan, his daughter-in-law Aishwarya Rai, DLF's top boss KP Singh, Omkar cover of Apollo Tyres, Gautam Adani's elder brother Vinod, you name it, and they're all there. The Panama Papers, the biggest expose of the year by a global consortium of investigative journalists, have put the spotlight back on black money that has been stashed overseas by the rich and famous in India. And it's not just the Indians. The list also have powerful names like the Russian President Vladimir Putin, Chinese Premier Li Keqiang, and of course Pakistan Prime Minister Nawaz Sharif.
The leaks reveal how bank accounts were opened in tax havens to park ill-gotten money abroad. In some cases, shell companies were formed to launder unaccounted funds. The Modi government, which came to power promising to bring back billions of dollars stashed abroad, has reacted rather quickly to the expose. Finance Minister Arun Jaitley says the PM has already asked for a crackdown. The government will form a multi-agency to get to the bottom of the case.
It's the biggest expose of the year, the Pandora's box from Panama. The latest leaks by the International Consortium of Investigative Journalists have laid bare billions of dollars secretly stashed away in the British Virgin Islands by the rich and the famous. Russian President Vladimir Putin, Chinese Premier Li Keqiang, Pakistani Prime Minister Nawaz Sharif, soccer legend Lionel Messi. These are just few among the scores of people whose names have popped up in these leaks. The money trail has also led to hidden investments by nearly 500 Indians. From Bollywood superstars Amitabh Bachchan and Aishwarya Rai Bachchan to legal eagle Harish Salve, to industrialists like DLF's KP Singh, India Bull Sameer Gehlot, Apollo Group's Omkar Kanwar, Gautam Adani's elder brother Vinod Adani have all allegedly parked their money in the tax haven either directly or through their kin. The key conduit in each of these cases is a law firm called Mossack Fonseca that helped these elites hide their money through a maze of investments to ensure secrecy. In some cases, money earned abroad has been parked in Panama to avoid paying tax. So for those named in these leaks, the trouble could begin small, particularly for those who haven't disclosed their overseas assets. But as the probe progresses, there will be tougher questions on what was the purpose of these companies. Did they violate FEMA rules at the time of shifting money to a tax haven? Were these shell companies used to launder ill-gotten money? At a time when bringing back black money is a key result area for the Modi government, the Panama leaks is sure to cure the pitch for the PM and his team. Sriram Iyer, ET Now, Mumbai.
Meanwhile, Finance Minister Arun Jaitley has said that the government will take stock of the revelations and take action against those found guilty of avoiding tax.
HSBC में लगभग 600 से अधिक लोगों के नाम आए थे, जिसमें 569 लोगों को ट्रेस आउट किया गया। जो गैर कानूनी पाए गए उनके खिलाफ असेसमेंट प्रोसीडिंग्स कंप्लीट हुए। लगभग 6,500 करोड़ के एसेट्स वहां पर डिस्कवर हुए और आज उसमें से 154 प्रोसिक्यूशंस पेंडिंग हैं। आज के रेवलेशंस हैं और समाचार पत्र से ये प्रतीत होता है कि अगले कुछ दिनों में कुछ और नाम स्पष्ट होंगे। तो जितनी भी डिटेल्स आएंगी जिन नामों के संबंध में, आज वित्त मंत्रालय ने एक मल्टी एजेंसी ग्रुप जिसमें सीबीडीटी, सीआईयू, एफआईयू और आरबीआई ऐसे कई संस्थाओं के जिसका वित्त मंत्रालय से संबंध है और इस विषय से संबंध है, उस मल्टी एजेंसी ग्रुप को बनाया है जो इसको कंटिन्यूअसली मॉनिटर करेगी। माननीय प्रधानमंत्री जी ने स्वयं इसका आग्रह किया है कि इस पे पूर्ण रूप से सरकार कार्रवाई करे।
All right, away from the finance minister, let's get you more details on that big breaking news. And ET Now's Gaurang Sinha and Ashwin Mohan are joining in with more perspective. Gaurang, to you then. The tax department, of course, has already swung into action. But Was the government aware that this Panama-based firm was a key conduit for setting up offshore companies? And how does this plan to investigate these new reports? What is the buzz that you're really picking up as far as North Block is concerned right now?
Well, despite the finance minister outlining some of the progress that have been made in the previous investigations, you'll know that the government, of course, was caught completely off guard. Sources have confirmed that the government, in fact, was completely unaware of the fact that this Panama-based firm, Mossack Fonseca, was a key conduit for setting up these offshore funds. Now, as far as the investigation is concerned, the finance minister has talked about the special multi-agency group, but we're hearing from sources that the British Virgin Islands that will be the key focus in this investigation going forward. Now, sources have confirmed that, in fact, the Indian government has already made contact with the government of the British Virgin Islands, and in fact, we do have a tax information sharing contract with them, which does mean that the Indian government will take up some of these names and take these up with the British Virgin Islands government to start a speedy investigation into the matter. Now, as far as the proceedings going forward are concerned, the government is essentially going to look at this. Remember, governments have also been getting information on tax evasion in the past. There are previous lists which have come out as well. The government is hoping that there will be some of these tax evaders, in fact, which are going to be named in these leaks, will also have or will already have been on the government's radar. Now, going ahead, the government will be looking to invoke the black money law, the overseas black money law, and the PMLA, essentially to try and go after these investigations. Remember, just the mere existence of a shell company is not sufficient to prove any wrongdoing. So the government will be looking to establish the quantum of these assets before going after some of these major names that have come out in today's expose.
Oh yes, plenty of big names there. Gaurang breaking that big story on the next course of action. Ashwin, now the government has made its intentions clear. It will crack the whip against tax evaders, but it's bound to be a mammoth and time-consuming task. You've been speaking to a whole host of tax experts as well. Tell us, what are some of the challenges that really lie ahead?
Sandeep, according to experts who closely track offshore structures that are set up by entities and by individuals, tightening the noose around those named in the Panama leaks, at least the Indian names, is bound to be an uphill task, because let's not forget that, for starters, India does not have a relevant tax exchange information pact with Panama. What that means is that the Indian authorities cannot force Panama to share information relating to the Panama leaks. But of course, that will be a big challenge. But let's not forget that under international pressure, it will be interesting to see if Panama chooses to cooperate. There is a precedent in the past. The US has in fact arm-twisted the Swiss authorities, who are notorious for the banking secrecy laws. So the Indian authorities would hope to get a major chunk of their information from Panama if Panama chooses to cooperate. That's the first point. The second most important point is that the source of this information, this explosive information, has to be sanctified by the Panama government. And if that information meets the yardsticks under the Domestic Evidence Act, then of course the doors are open for the Indian tax authorities to go ahead and issue notices. So that also has to be done. The information has to be sanctified by Panama. Going ahead, as Gaurang was pointing out, in the case of British Virgin Islands, of course, in 2011, there was a tax information agreement that has been struck. So therefore, no problems over there. There will be a legitimate flow of information. British Virgin Islands is obligated to share that information with India. But the biggest fear that tax experts have is that it will be very, very cumbersome for the Indian tax authorities to sift out what are the genuine structures that have already been disclosed to the government and what are the illegal structures that have been hidden. So therefore, going ahead, their biggest fear is that the Indian authorities should not mix up the entities linked to Panama and the entities linked to the British Virgin Islands, because of course, nobody wants all these names to be painted with the same brush.
Thank you very much, Ashwin Mohan and Gaurang Sinha, for keeping us up to date, is perhaps with the story that we're calling it the expose of the year. But we did have a whole host of experts on the channel earlier on to decode the Panama leaks, and they said it will be a while before the right people can be brought to justice. Legal experts also warned against painting everyone with the same brush. Time to get you the best minds and the best voices on that story.
The one big risk you have from a legal perspective is that you're going to try and tar everybody with the same brush. And the fact is that each of these cases is going to be distinct based on its own facts. And people who have a legitimate source from India, for example, have gone out through the LRS, etc. You might find that their facts and their position in law is completely distinct from several others. But today the tendency is that, we will in first flush tend to say there is something wrong, and I think that is completely uncalled for. And the reason for that is the point that you were making in terms of the sanctity and admissibility of evidence. Whether this is stolen information or not, or whether it is information illegally procured, the source of that information itself will in a way determine what is going to be the admissibility of this.
To my mind, there were three distinct categories of people which came in. The first category is the people who are non-resident Indians, who are based overseas. They may have relatives in India, they may be part of an industrial family or a group, but they are non-residents and they have got assets overseas. That's one category. The second category of people is people who are resident Indians and who have officially remitted monies overseas under LRS scheme. And those people who have sent out those monies have got monies officially, they were bound to, and they ought to have declared those monies in their tax returns. And then we have third, monies which are lying overseas, which are unaccounted and therefore covered by the Black Money Act.
Now, where these intermediaries reside and what information we can get regarding these intermediaries will also depend on what kind of treaties we have with these various countries. Besides the Income Tax Act getting information to exchange of information, there is a treaty regarding, there is a mutual legal assistance treaties regarding prosecution of these people and whether we can put them under those treaties. Now all this requires a lot of time, manpower and hours of labor. I don't think it's going to be done in a hurry. I think we may see months, if not a couple of years before any fruitful action can be taken against them.
It'll take months, if not years, before some sort of an action is taken on that front.
Find us on Facebook at facebook.com/ETNow and don't forget to click the like button. You can also follow us on Twitter at ETNowLive. To stay updated with all our programming, hit the subscribe button on our YouTube channel by logging on to youtube.com/user/ETNow.